This is History 353, U.S.-Mexico Borderlands. It's a class of 28 juniors and seniors at Colorado State. And they studied the history of the Borderlands from about 1531 or 1528 up to the present for the first 3 quarters of the term. And in the last 3 weeks, since the week before Thanksgiving, they've been building this story map based on research that they have done on El Chamizal, some of which are documents that you guys have supplied us or documents that you have recommended to us, like the UTEP oral histories and things like that. So the way this is going to work is of the 28 students, 4 of them have volunteered to present the story map to you. We have more than 80 slides in the story map, and we won't present all of them, but we will present a handful of them so that you can get a flavor for what story mapping can accomplish. This is not a finished product, but we'd like to present the state of it as it is now, and hopefully showcase what some of the possibilities are, and then also get your feedback for what else you'd like to see or what revisions you'd like, so that we can keep working on it, make some revisions and things like that. The 4 students have about a 20 to 30 minute presentation, roughly, and then we'd like to open up for Q&A, and the entire class can respond to your questions. If you have any feedback for us, do this, do that kind of thing. If you have questions that you'd like us to explain why we did things, please feel free to ask them. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn it over to the students, presenters. On your right, we have Lizzie Freymuth. Wave, Lizzie.
Hello.
Can you guys see Lizzie? Okay, good.
Yes.
Next, we have Gabe Romero right here. And then to your left in the center here, we have Dylan Loesch. And on your far left, we have Laura Boozer. And I'll turn it over to them at this point, and they can show you what we've come up with in the last 3 weeks.
We're here, privileged to be here today, part of Dr. Orsi's History of Mexico and U.S. Borderlands. Our class, like Dr. Orsi said, is constructed of 28 students with majors all across the CSU colleges. There's actually 1/3 of history majors in here, all juniors and seniors. So we are also thankful for CSU's mission to train young professionals and apply experiences to benefit our community all around us, hence why we actually did this Chamizal GIS project. And this couldn't have been possible without Sammy or Heidi, who you were just talking to, for their tech support, research, help, and just complete patience throughout this whole last semester. And also a big thanks to our classmates, too, behind me, and their hard work throughout the semester, them putting in the actual mat hours, the research. And finally, thanks to you guys, too, the park staff, for providing us research material and giving us your time and patience also. So for the past 4 weeks, we have been working on a Chamizal story map. A story map is a GIS-based digital platform for telling stories in space and time, particularly from the 1800s to the present day, between relationships between Mexico and the U.S. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we're presenting today. So today we'll be covering a chronological structure of our story maps. Then second, a layering of our story maps and their kind of interactive features is next, and the cool kind of people can be a part of and easy accessible features. And then suggestions towards the end on how to make this a more efficient project and manageable. So as scholars, these story maps represent what we accomplished through this last semester over a short time through creativity, openness, and a whole semester of learning. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lizzie, and she'll talk about the chronological structure.
Thanks, Gabe. Hi, ladies. So one day as a class, we all discussed how we wanted to structure this project, and we had a pretty long discussion about it and decided we wanted to do it in a chronological order, with also kind of a hybridity with like thematic aspects to it as well. So to start off, to explain that, one of our first groups that we divided ourselves into was the time period 1820s to 1860s. And for that group, they focused on the formation of the border. So, for instance, they looked into the repercussions of Polk's presidency, as well as the Mexican-American War and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, as well as an analysis of the social and economic relationships along the border. The next group was 1860s to 1890s, and they focused on the flooding of the Rio Grande. And there was also a focus on territorialization, as well as river placement, and a look into the environment with that group. The next one was 1890s to 1910s, and they looked into the arbitration of the memorial. And they discussed a lot of earlier proposed solutions, as well as presidential actions and the arbitration commission. They also took a look into the Water Commission, at the life of the Garcia family and Chamizal Society, as well as the environment that surrounds the memorial. The group after that was 1910s to 1960s, and they looked into the dispute, and they considered tourism, the prohibition in the U.S., drug trafficking, the hole-in-the-wall saloon, Cordova Island, and the Mexican Revolution, as well as diplomacy that went along with all of that. The group after them was 1960s, and they looked into the resolution, and they discussed a lot of culture and like settlement of the area, as well as the political cultures of both the United States and Mexico, as well as like what society was like during the 1960s in both countries. And they also included the Chamizal Convention, as well as the physical environment and the border itself. And the last group was 1960s to present, and their main focuses were conservation, interpretation, facilities, the amphitheater at the memorial, visitation, ecology, and wildlife also at the memorial. So we chose to do this because we also chose to divide these time increments this way because they're all less than a century, and we thought that would give enough room for detail, but not so little room that it had to be super detailed. So one of our suggestions later on is that there could have been a look into how much more detail we could have used if we'd had more time or something like that. Also, these events shaped the border and the modern border of how it is in the area of Chamizal. So we thought it was important to look into those world events, the wars, the treaties, the environmental occurrences, governmental influences, and outside societal factors as well. And so if you ladies have any questions about those groups, we're going to have the Q&A at the end, like Dr. Orsi said. And so Laura's actually going to show us the layering and the cool interactive features on the map.
Awesome. Hi, ladies. So just to kind of give you all an idea for what we did, we kind of took, like they said, a layering approach. So a lot of the really basic information appears kind of at first sight. And then as you click into links and things like that, there's a lot of photos embedded, links to different websites, different videos. And so it kind of allows for depth and kind of broad coverage of the information that we decided to talk about. And then, yeah, there's definitely a combination of primary and secondary sources that were used, and you can see those throughout the map as well, and a lot of interactive maps. So now I'm going to try to, can you all see my mouse moving on the screen over there? If I were to move this, you can see that?
It's right by the, yes, I see it on the left.
Okay, perfect. So I've just chosen 5 or 6 different slides that we'll go through. Like Lizzie mentioned, so with the time periods, all of these slides are broken up into that, and there's about 84 slides total, but I've just kind of taken 5 or 6 throughout that we can kind of look at some of the interactive features that are on there. So we'll just kind of dive into that. Let me know if you have any questions as we go. So I chose this one to talk about first, Polk's War, and it has a variety of different features, and so there's this video over here on the side panel that can be watched kind of just as a visual aid versus having to read all of the text, which is helpful, and again kind of gets at our goal was the 9 to 90 rule, so that someone who's 9 years old could walk in and understand the map, and then someone who's 90 could walk in and understand the map and navigate it, and hopefully with the layers that allows for diversity and how much background knowledge users have, so people who don't have a lot of knowledge about the park or the area can learn a lot, and those who do know a lot hopefully can learn something too. And then so just as a couple of examples, there's some embedded links. So this one talks about Polk's War, and then if you wanted to learn a little bit more about this first paragraph, you could just click on More, which would take you over to kind of a longer document explaining more about this slide. And that's throughout this slide, and this is also throughout a lot of the slides on here. And then here it talks about a couple of people who were involved in kind of this battle. And so if you wanted to learn more about John Slidell, you could just click on that, and then in the side panel, there's some more information on him. you could read more about that. And then all of these are embedded links even within this kind of article here, so that allows for even kind of more information if it's desired. And then Zachary Taylor, the same thing. You could click on those words and then kind of pull up more information about him as well, and then read more on that. Okay. And then the second one. The Treaty of Hidalgo. So this is neat, and this is just one example of the maps that we used. So you can kind of zoom in a little bit here, and you can kind of interact with this map if desired. But if you click on this flag right here, it kind of gives a little bit more information about where the treaty was signed, who was involved, and there's even like a little picture available, again, kind of allowing for more layers there. So that's what's kind of unique about this one. And then obviously there's the text that can be used to kind of help enhance some of that. And then now we're going to skip down to slide 37. Okay. And then this one is a map as well, but it's just a little bit different. So a little bit more of like a lifetime modern view, again with the push pins. And then within the push pins, there are some links available too, and this is also kind of exemplified in some of the other slides that students have done. So that's, again, allowing for more kind of layering of information. And then over here in the side text, there's some links that are embedded again. So if you wanted to learn more about the settlers, there's a link that will load. You can learn more about the residents in the Chamizal area, go straight to the national parks kind of website there, and then another link is also embedded, which might not actually work. Yeah, so this goes to newspapers.com, but you definitely need a login to access that one. Okay, and then on to slide number 54, working through the time here. Okay, and again, just kind of going back to, there's kind of primary and secondary sources offered, but this one kind of shows, so here's a primary source that shows up kind of in the main side panel. Whenever you click on the words Cordova Island, it kind of gives a little bit of an intro, so kind of has some academic, aspects too, and then also a picture, so there's a lot of pictures embedded that can show up in the side panels. And then again with the websites and that aspect as well. Okay, and then let's just look at one more here. It's towards the bottom. Okay, am I going too quickly or are you all following? Ladies?
Good. It's a little slow, but we're following along. Yeah.
Okay, you're okay?
We're good. Yes.
Okay.
You're doing great.
Sound.
Okay. All right. Great.
That looks familiar.
Okay. We'll just go through one more here. So this one just has a lot of aesthetic appeal. Again, kind of having something that can appeal to people who just kind of want that visual aspect, and then also having the text over here to complement some of that. So this one just talks about the environment and the hummingbirds in the area. And so to click on every one of these links, kind of brings up information or brings up a picture of the hummingbird that's talked about, and then it has the different bullet points talking about what this hummingbird is and kind of the significance to the area. And this is the case for all of these links here. So again, kind of providing the aesthetic appeal along with the information provided by the text. So that was kind of just a overview of some of the different features that there are. There's a lot of them to be found throughout, but I think that those 5 definitely kind of exemplify what a lot of them do entail, and we're kind of hoping that that allows for kind of depth and insight, as well as, again, the aesthetic and visual appeal as well.
Being a bunch of students and stuff, there were limitations that we had in making this project. So we just wanted to touch on a few things that we might change, and suggestions that we had for the actual installation of the project. So first of all, one suggestion that I had was the University of Texas El Paso actually has an excellent selection of recordings for their oral history project, and I thought it would be awesome to have that playing before people started going through our story map, just because that could be in both Spanish and English and give a good introduction to what's kind of going on in the area.
Cool. And something else that we talked about was that it would be neat to maybe incorporate an actual Chamizal resident, maybe through film and just kind of a way of getting a personal story to become a part of the map and making people really feel connected to the park in that way. As well as we want to acknowledge that there's always room for more detail. We like to think that we covered a lot of ground, and I think that we definitely did. But there's always kind of layers to be added and details to kind of be pulled apart in a sense.
We also wanted to touch on the fact that in verifying sources, we're like 99% sure all of it is completely factual, but we just thought that maybe if someone wanted to come over that and make sure that was all working out, that'd be great.
And then just for all of us too, just the time and limitations we did have, it was kind of like three weeks we had to do it, and maybe if we just had maybe the whole semester, not the whole semester, but just kind of started on it earlier, just to kind of have a more of an idea for this ideation periods, and then kind of go into like the concluding part smoother. And then also none of us, I don't know, some of us might be technical. Pretty technical, but I guess like the technical aspect, we're lucky to have Sammy here with us too, who helped us out a lot. And but it's just maybe if we could have had a little bit more time orientation wise, just to get comfortable with the programs, that would have been a little bit more helpful also.
Another thing we talked about was there's a little bit of overlapping within the different groups' research, and like Gabe mentioned, I think it has a lot to do with just like time limitations, and if we had a class had more time to discuss who was going to research what and present what, we probably could have gotten rid of a little bit of that overlap. But also, we thought, because none of us have actually been to the memorial, if we could have had a little bit more of a personal touch to it, maybe we could have just added a little bit more to it because of that. But other than that, that's pretty much all we came up with. And now we have time for questions if you have any.
This looks great. It looks like a really fun, interactive way to connect a lot of different information about our story and about the memorial. It will be, you see us every now and then, like really peering at this screen because it's pretty small for us right now, but we're really excited about, getting to look at it a little more closely,
and larger.
This looks really great, and that is a very short amount of time to deal with a big chunk of story.
A complex story.
Yes.
Yes, very complex story.
So ladies, this is Heidi. I should let you know that we're going to be moving this into the NPS template, so it won't have that Esri stuff on top. It'll have all the, the arrowhead and all that jazz. But we had a little bit of a technical glitch in the switch between NPS and CSU. So in the coming weeks here, we'll get it switched over to NPS and then start kind of working through some of those overlaps that we found and trying to kind of get it a little bit smoother.
Excellent. I don't remember if I sent the conceptual design plan or not for the new exhibits, but we are planning on having some oral history listening stations in the museum.
Cool.
Okay.
So this project actually is lining up very nicely because we're getting the funding for our final museum, the new museum exhibits. So we'll be going into another phase of planning here shortly. So this is going to have real world application on the ground at the park.
That's awesome.
So
That's
Yay.
awesome.
And this is Jared.
Hey.
I'm probably off screen. You said that there's a planning document for the museum?
There's the conceptual design plan for the museum redesign, and then we've got some interim exhibits that my Rockstar team put together that were installed this spring. And then we're going to be going, because the CDP, the conceptual design plan, was done before any of them came on board at transition of staff here, which is normal with the Park Service. So we're going to go into another round of planning with my current team as we move to finalizing the new exhibits in the museum. So we're really excited about this project and how that can enhance what we've already got in the works. So thank you all so much.
Help me understand, as the person in the visitor center standing there at the touch table or whatever the way we're going to present this is, how are they interacting with the slides? How are they moving through the story?
Nick has an answer for us.
I mean, I don't know exactly how it would work for your exhibit, but ideally, since this is sort of a click feature kind of a program, if you had some sort of touch screen that you could click through and touch on the slides on the side, which would sort of navigate you through, and then be able to touch on the links, the little interactive features, the pop-up photos, and other websites. That would, in my head, be the best way, just from going to other museums in the past and seeing how they run their exhibits. But there could definitely be a different way to do it. But
I'll add, this is Jared again, I'll add one thing. I think Heidi and I would have to confer about this to make sure that it's an acceptable template for the Park Service, but I think that we could create some tabs that would have, right now there's just 84 roughly chronologically organized slides. And we envision that being whittled down to the very best of what's in there. And then I think we can create some tabs that would give some structure to it, so that the tabs could be organized by theme or by time period or by topic or something like that, so that visitors could interact with particular tabs rather than having to be overwhelmed by 84 consecutive slides. And then another student here, Christian, has another thought. His hand's in the air. So
yeah, no, I just had kind of a suggestion. Maybe we could separate it like by topic, but instead of doing it like by tabs, like Jared said, which is a good idea, but we could like take like have a computer terminal in one area, maybe outside on the grounds, and put the stuff about the ecology in that one. And then, stuff about the history and various other stations. Does that make sense? You see where I'm going?
Yes.
So that was just another suggestion as to how we could, make it more manageable with all the 84 stuff, all slides and all that information. You're just splitting it up, so then you could just go to the station that you want to, and you can go in any order you want to then too.
Honoring the visitor Bill of Rights. Excellent.
Right. That's what I'm all about.
Us too. No, I'm really impressed at what all you were able to put together in such a short time.
So I have another question for the students. I'm curious for you guys to share some anecdotes about your own experiences of using this to learn things about Chamizal, how it affected your processing the information that you're learning, or how you're synthesizing the facts that you're coming across related to Chamizal.
Well, one decision that we made pretty early on was to divide into these chronological groups. And that allowed us to really dive deep with like 3 or 4 different students into these different chronological areas. And I think there wasn't a lot of cross-communication, at least with my group, between the groups, but we got to work really in depth with our group members and kind of coordinate and align along that. And I think that was a rewarding part of it.
Nice.
Avery?
I think I learned a lot more about it through the story mapping than I would studying for like a written exam.
Okay.
I think this is a lot more beneficial to me personally, because for people who aren't very good at test taking or don't absorb any of that kind of stuff, I feel like I absorbed a lot more information about the history than I would have on, say, a written exam.
So they read we had one day of class back in October where they had some readings, background readings on the history of the tract of land, and then also the history of the park. And so we spent one day discussing that. But then, 90% of what they've learned has been through their individual research and having to put it together in this story map format. Can anybody characterize what is the value added of doing this project as opposed to just having a day or two of readings in class like we did with other topics?
Well, I feel like a lot of us didn't even know Chamizal was a national park, to be honest.
You're among the majority.
So I think, I don't know, just little things like this help get kind of their name out there. But I think as far as learning goes through the story map, it was allowed us to focus in on specific details of the park and then kind of learn from other groups and get a lot more knowledge of the subject rather than just reading 2 articles.
How many of you had heard of El Chamizal before this class? How many of you had encountered that? One person. Just one. So now we had one person who'd heard of it. Now we have 28 experts on it. Dylan, you look like maybe you had something to add.
Oh yeah. No, I was just thinking about how we're talking about how doing the story maps have kind of made us understand the park better, and I just thought it was very interesting because in the readings it kind of seems surface level history-wise, but then in getting to really focus on our particular parts, it really kind of shows how there's 2 big sides to both stories, and the way that people tell the story is going to be much different than how people live the story. And I think that's a really good thing that we brought out in our story map because we tried to show both of those things.
Great.
I was going to say too, as students over the course of 16 weeks in a semester in the world of academia, you have exams and papers and projects that don't really oftentimes leave that realm of academia. And it was really cool to have a project that you can go so far in depth with to where it has a real life application, and it was sort of an actual project that can be applied outside of the world of CSU. So that for me at least, that was a motivating factor to sort of do it right and go deeper and really learn a lot about the topics.
Nice. Parks are living laboratories. We are the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Christian had another response about his experience here.
Okay, well, no, I was just going to add real quick. The important thing for me was that it was visual. Because, yeah, you could read about it. You could learn a lot from just reading about it. And I did, because you got the documents that you uploaded there, which were really good. But when I actually sat down to build my map, my section of the map, that gave me a better sense of, okay, this is where everything is. This is how this works. This is, where the boundary is, where this is. And, you could literally see, okay, here's, Mexico right there, right below it on the same map. And it's okay, this is really yeah, you're going to have people coming in from both countries. I could see why they needed to be bilingual, because of the, proximity and everything. It clicked for me doing the map and the visual stuff, so.
You guys can't see us, but we're sitting here shaking our heads yes and giving thumbs up a lot and smiling. Good nodding.
Good nodding.
Yeah, this seems to be a project that was really beneficial. I love hearing the students' comments because that was exactly what we were hoping for, but not really sure if we were going to be able to pull it off. So it's good to hear that this project really worked out really well for the students. And once we really, distill this down to something that's super useful for the park, that you guys can put it on your webpage, touch screens, however you decide you want to do it, seems like this is going to be a really, really beneficial project for everybody.